As said, we are here today to deliver a session about how to prepare for the upcoming transition in Defender for Servers, which is part of Defender for Cloud. I will present today with Tom. Both of us are both product managers in the CXC team, customer experience in Defender for Cloud. So before I start the presentation, I want to give some context on the session today. So Log Analytics agent, also known as MMA, as we announced already a long time ago, is on a deprecation path and will be retired starting from August 2024, with exception of specific features that we will cover. In the past, MDC, Defender for Cloud, and as part of that, Defender for Service capabilities were partially delivered through MMA agent, and towards this Log Analytics agent and MMMA retirement in August, and as part of our Defender for Server strategy to migrate all of our capabilities to one agent, most of our features and capabilities will be provided through one agent and agentless. And today, the session is to cover exactly where we're at in this journey. So, the agenda for today is, first of all, I want to go again on Defender for Servers scope, Defender for Servers part of Defender for Cloud, and our strategy. Then we are going to talk about all of the progress that we did of moving MMA capabilities to Defender for Servers agent based and agentless. And we are going to focus about the new releases, which are theme baseline. Then after that, afterward, we explain to you our strategy again and where we at in this road. We are going to have a session starting with Tom, call to action, explaining what are the customers that need to take action as part of this deprecation, who are the customers group that need to take action. And in the end, we will give you all the migration tools that are available for you that we prepared in order to enable you seamless migration and easy migration. Of course, you are welcome to put question in the chat, and in the end, we will try to answer here all the main questions. So let's start a little bit with our strategy and our direction. And I want to start, first of all, from Microsoft Defender for Cloud. So as you all know, Microsoft Defender for Cloud is Microsoft CNAPP platform. CNAPP is a cloud native application protection platform. This is a term coined by Gartner a few years ago. And what does it mean? It means that we cover all your cloud security end to end. What you see here in the slide is all the things that we are covering, and I want to start from the left. So the left is the DevSecOps, what we call shift left, is securing your DevOps, securing your code, and also migrating all of this finding across multi-pipelines into your cloud security platform. So this is the DevSecOps. After that, we also have the Cloud Infrastructure Entitlement Management. This is our way to enforce principles of least privilege across a multi-cloud with integration with KIM. And then we have the Cloud Security Posture Management. This is basically to ensure you a cloud hygiene. So we give you visibility and context of insight to identify all your misconfiguration in the cloud, supporting multi-resources and also supporting multi-cloud. As you see here, we have AWS, of course, GCP on-prem, and of course, Azure. So we give you end-to-end posture, multi-cloud, and all your resources to see and to have visibility on all the things that you need to fix in order to have better security hygiene. And in the end, basically, we have the cloud workload protection, or as some people call it, CWP. Here is where we help you to detect in real time and respond to your threats. So first of all, we give you your posture and then in your security hygiene, then we help you to detect in real time. And in order to give you even better visibility on additional capabilities, we also integrate with Microsoft Purview to give you data security as part of our CNAPP platform. We integrate with ESM, Microsoft Defender External Attack Surface Management. We also integrate with Azure Network Security and also Microsoft Sentinel. And basically, here we give you end-to-end cloud security. As part of our Microsoft Defender for Cloud CNAPP platform, we deliver a Defender for servers, which is basically a multi-layered security approach for servers that, again, should give you end-to-end capabilities. If we look at the examples here, so we have visibility and compliance, for example, device inventory, software inventory. We have a reduced attack surface. We talked about the posture, so vulnerability management, secret scanning, hardening baseline. So we give you all this information to harden and solve the misconfiguration in your servers. We have servers advanced control, which is file integrity monitoring and JIT. And we have also detection and response for control plane, network layer, DNS. And on top of all that, as we said, we have a multi-layer security approach for server, which is part of Defender for Cloud. So on top of all that, we also integrate all the capabilities from Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, network control, antivirus and EDR, and threat hunting. So this is our approach to give you a server security end-to-end from posture to runtime. But during the years, we heard a lot of feedback from customers that although we give this end-to-end security capabilities, we do it through a lot of different agents, and this creates a lot of friction and a lot of prerequisites to our customers. So we heard the feedback, and what we did in the last year is basically to transition all the capabilities to be delivered by one agent, which is Defender for Endpoint, and also agentless capabilities. So Defender for Servers is basically, as we said, is part of Defender for Cloud, is giving you the hybrid approach, the agent-based and the agentless, and each one gives you additional capabilities and additional values. The main thing from this slide is that we don't give agent or agentless, we give you the hybrid approach, so you can use both of them in order to get the end-to-end security capabilities for servers. So if we talk about, first of all, the agent side, so in order to get in-depth protection for servers, you need to have an agent, and this is where we use our market-leading endpoint security, Defender for Endpoint. This gives you the ability to have real-time detection. We give you the ability to have automatic VM discovery and automatic onboarding of servers in the cloud. And we also did a performance optimization for servers. On the other side, we allow you to have the agentless capabilities. The agentless capabilities are cloud-native protection. They are frictionless. They have wide coverage. It's easy to use them. You just need to enable it. And it's an in-scale capability to give you visibility on your posture issue and potential attacks. It has zero performance impact on the workload, since it does not include an agent. And also a great advantage there is that the security team do not depend on workload owners. So this is our, as we said, our strategy on how we see server security. And as I said, we heard the feedback of having everything in one agent and agentless. So a year ago, we presented our plans, and now is basically the moment that we reached having all our capabilities delivered through the agent and the agentless. We do have some capabilities that we still need to cover to move to the same agent, but now again is the time that all of the capabilities that are delivered by MMA can be replaced by other solutions, and everything is covered by the MDE and agentless. So if we look at the capabilities themselves, MDE allows you endpoint detection and response, EDR, OS level security alerts, OS security baseline. This is covered by guest configuration, and we will focus it in the next two slides. We have the FIM which is file integrity monitoring, malware detection, and VA and software inventory. So all these are covered from the agent that we use Defender for endpoint. On the other side, for the cloud native, we use the agentless detection. You get the malware and the VA. You also get EDR recommendations, control place detection, JIT, secret scanning, and regulatory compliance. So this is where we cover you end-to-end with the MDE and agentless. As I said, we do have a situation that we will require one more agent, and this is what you see below is the 500 megabyte data allowance. So for this capability, if you want to move from MMA and still use this capability, you will still need to use the AMA agent, and Tom will give more information about this scenario later on in the presentation. Okay, so until now I covered what is Defender for Servers in high level and as part of our MDC CNAPP platform. I also covered our strategy in Defender for Server to move to one agent, and now I want to cover the newest releases that we have that we delivered in the past few months. So the first one is FIM integrity, file integrity monitoring, or as we call it, FIM. This is powered by MDE. The current status that is already public preview. We see customers, we know customers are using that. The public preview was released in August 2024. GA is planned for September 2024, so really, really soon. And the main thing here, and I will ask the team here to put the invitation for the next webinar that we are going to have in 2 weeks, but in 2 weeks, we are going to have a dedicated webinar for FIM, in which we will talk about the new FIM experience under MDE, the FIM migration tool. So you will have end-to-end knowledge on how you can use the new FIM, what are the capabilities that you get, and how can you move from the MMA FIM to the new MDE FIM. A few more things about the file integrity monitoring. So the FIM via AMA preview was removed from the MDC portal in August 2024, when we basically went out with the FIM powered by MDE. So this is no longer available. The FIM via log analytics agent, the MMA, will be there until the end of November. And this is mainly to allow you to have an easy migration from the MMA FIM to the MDE FIM. So it's there until the end of November to help you move. You do need to, if you want to use the new FIM by the MDE, you need to know that you do need to activate this capability. The second latest release that we had is OS Security Baseline. So in short, what is OS Security Baseline? These capabilities allow you to evaluate and monitor servers against industry security benchmark to ensure compliance in your server's baseline. We provide detailed and very informative recommendation on how to remediate and resolve the issue that are in your baseline server that are not compliant. This feature is now applicable for all Azure resources through seamless extension installation with the guest configuration. And this feature is also available for multi-cloud, for on-premise machines, and also as a built-in feature in Azure Arc. So as you can see here, we support the security baseline for Azure resources, but also for multi-cloud and on-prem. A little bit more information on the security baseline from Date's point of view. So the OS security baseline powered by guest configuration is GA. So you can use it and available. It will be available only as part of Defender for Servers Plan 2. OS security baseline powered by log analytic agents, or the MMA, will be supported by the end of November 2024. As the same as before, we gave this time in order to help you to move from the OS security baseline in MMA to the new capability that you have as a GA. In the past, we also talked about OS security baseline powered by MDVM, which is part of MDE for Windows, but this will remain as a post FY25 effort. So in essence, if you want to use security baseline, you need to use the guest configuration. And again, when we talk about tools, Tom will give more information when we go on. So the last thing before I move to Tom is that as I said in the beginning, from September, all the features that you as a customer need MMA already have alternative solution. And everything that you see here that we allow you in the MMA Sunset Plan, which is we give a little bit more time in FIM, in GC, in the auto provision that we will talk, is just to allow an easier deprecation. So when we talk about the MMA Sunset Plan, if we talk about the MMA auto provisioning, so in Defender for Cloud, from the mid of September 2024, for newly created subscriptions or subscription that has switched off the MMA provisioning, auto provisioning, they will no longer be able to use this capability. By the end of November 2024, we will disable the MMA auto provisioning capability for all the subscription that hadn't yet switched it off. So it's important to know that for all the things that you have existing MMA auto provisioning, it will work until November, but for all the new from mid-September, it's no longer applicable. Okay, so if we talk about MMA integration dates and when it will be finally disabled, sorry, by Defender for Cloud. So while we said that MMA is end of life since August, we will continue to support the specific feature in order that you need in order to move, which is FIM or security baseline and the 500 megabyte data allowance as part of Defender for Servers Plan 2. These will all be supported by end of November 2024. On top of that, MMA will continue to work as an agent, as a long ingestion scenario, but it's not related, it's outside of MDC and without support. This will be available until February 2025, but everything related to MDC will end by November 2024. And the last part is, what do customers need in order to remove MMA from the machine? So first of all, they will need to disable the MMA auto provision, and this is the information I gave you before, in order to prevent Defender for Cloud to redeploy the MMA agent. So this is the first point. And the second is, if you want to remove the MMA from your machine, you have different tools. One example here is the MMA removal utility. And again, here Tom will cover, but all this information is covered in our documentation, and we also have the deprecation blog. So basically, you can find all in our documentation, all the needed information in order to also how to remove the MMA utility. So we covered our strategy, and also we covered basically all the last releases. So the FIM and the OS baseline, and we also covered the MMA Sunset Plan. And from here, I want to give the stage to Tom to talk about the customers that need to take action, and then to talk about the tools we delivered in order to give you easier migration tools. So Tom, it's to you.
Thank you very much, Miri. All right, let me share my screen. Here we go. I hope you can see it.
Yes.
Cool. So yes, there are two different scenarios that we want to focus on when we're talking about call to action. The reason is that formerly customers could have enabled Defender for Servers by just connecting the Log Analytics agent or the MMA to the Log Analytics workspace without focusing on the actual subscription. While that provided some capabilities, they might have been lacking of others. And now with the transition that we're doing, that means that customers will be losing some features, maybe even the whole security value, if they are not following the different action plans that we provide. So the first thing is, or the first scenario is customers that are relying on Defender for Servers Plan 2 and the Log Analytics agent-based capabilities. So imagine you are onboarding your machine to the Log Analytics workspace, and you have not enabled Defender for Servers on the subscription, or you have enabled the Defender for Servers on the subscription, but not the features of Defender for Endpoint integration and agentless scanning. Then the recommendation is make sure to enable these integrations on your subscription, because as Miri shared already, all the capabilities, or most of the capabilities besides the OS security baselines, in Defender for Servers Plan 2 rely either on the integration of Microsoft Defender for Endpoint or on the agentless or platform-based capabilities. So if you do not enable agentless scanning, you will miss out of any agentless capabilities such as secret scanning, for example. And if you do not enable MDE integration, that means that you are missing all of the agent-based capabilities, including malware detection, threat detection, real-time capabilities that help you prevent an attack on your machines. The second scenario is a little bit more complex, and this is when customers have been using the legacy onboarding approach. So there are actually two scenarios. Scenario one, well, three scenarios, but most of them is two scenarios. The first scenario is customers have been using on-prem machines and connect these machines to a Log Analytics workspace. And then these machines could have benefited from the Log Analytics agent-based capabilities. Defender for Servers was not enabled on any subscription, and that on-prem machine was not connected anywhere else other than that workspace. While there was the agent-based capability that was provided by Defender for Servers Plan 2, now with these changes that we're doing, these machines will lose the security value and the connection to the workspace. So what you need to do is be aware that the Log Analytics workspace-based onboarding capability will be deprecated by end of November 2024. So as of then, you can no longer use that integration or that onboarding to Defender for Cloud based on the Log Analytics agent. And in order to keep the security value for these machines, you need to do two things. First of all, you need to enable Defender for Servers Plan 2 on your Azure subscription or on your multi-cloud connector. And if we're talking about on-prem machines, then you need to connect these on-prem machines via Azure Arc enabled servers. Or in case you're not interested in Defender for Servers Plan 2, but only Plan 1 capabilities, you can also use the Microsoft Defender for Endpoint direct onboarding approach. That means that you can deploy Defender for Endpoint to these machines, these on-prem machines on your own, and let Defender for Cloud detect all the server operating systems in the Defender for Endpoint backend and connect them to an Azure subscription that has Defender for Servers Plan 1 enabled. The second scenario that we have been seeing is where customers have been using this legacy onboarding approach to make kind of a granularity, to make a granular decision which machines should be covered by Defender for Servers Plan 2 and which not. For this capability, or for this scenario, we have a new capability that is called the resource level onboarding or deployment of Defender for Servers. Back in December last year, we released a feature that allows you now to not only enable Defender for Servers on a subscription, but also to either downgrade a Plan 2 machine to Defender for Servers Plan 1, or to switch off Defender for Servers Plan 1 completely. Or the other way around, you can enable Defender for Servers Plan 1 just on individual machines without having to enable the server plan across the whole subscription. So if this is the scenario that you are in, then you can still use the resource level deployment of Defender for Servers. But it is important to understand that if you've been using the legacy onboarding approach, then you need to do an action, either enable Defender for Servers on the subscription and connect your machines via Azure Arc, or if it is an Azure subscription with an Azure VM in it, then you just need to enable the plan on the subscription or on the individual machine. And if this is for onboarding granularity, then use that new resource level capability to enable Defender for Servers Plan 1 on individual resources. Now, as Miri said, we have some migration tools that are already available and some others will be available in the next couple of weeks. The first migration tool that I want to emphasize on is the Defender for Servers deployment status workbook that we created. This workbook is available in GitHub, and it comes with 4 different pivots into your environment to give you insights into the configuration as it is today, and also if there is something that you need to do. The first pivot that you see in here is the Defender for Servers coverage details across your subscriptions. What it does is it gives you insights into the subscription. It tells you if Defender for Servers is enabled, if it is enabled, which plan it is, and in case it is Defender for Servers Plan 2, if agentless scanning is enabled. It does not show in this pivot if the integration with Microsoft Defender for Endpoint is enabled, reason being because that information does not live in Azure Resource Graph, so it's not easy to show it in a workbook, but we have another pivot that gives you that indication as well. So the first one is a subscription level. If Defender for Servers is enabled, and if it is enabled, do you also have agentless scanning enabled? And this, of course, should always be enabled because, first of all, it does have zero resource impact. And second, it will provide additional capabilities that are not available only by leveraging an agent. The second pivot looks into all the subscriptions and all the machines that are connected to the subscription, either as an Azure Arc machine or because they are Azure Virtual Machines. And if they still have the legacy agent, the Log Analytics agent deployed. In case this agent is still deployed, and we already know from the subscription ID and the subscription name if Defender for Servers Plan 2 is enabled with or without agentless scanning, this pivot now also gives you insights into the MDE deployment status. So for all these machines, that means, so all the machines you see here means that these machines still have the legacy agent deployed. We don't actually care if that agent is there, but if it is there, we still want to know if the Defender for Endpoint agent is deployed as well. And this is what we see in the Defender for Endpoint extension and provisioning state columns. Defender for Endpoint extension, if that is green, it says it will have the MDE Windows or MDE.Linux extension deployed. If it says extension is missing, that means that Defender for Endpoint is not deployed. And then we have the provisioning state that says either failed or succeeded. Succeeded, of course, means Defender for Endpoint has successfully been installed in the operating system. If it says failed, then it means that the extension is deployed, but the operating system internal deployment status failed for whatever reason. And you need to then go look deeper why the installation actually failed on that particular machine. The third section that we have goes one step further. It leaves out of scope if the Log Analytics agent is deployed, and it gives you a total visibility into the current deployment status of Microsoft Defender for Endpoint across all of your subscriptions. What we see here is there is an Azure Virtual Machine that has the extension. There are some Azure Arc machines that do not have the extension. Other virtual machines also don't have it, and so on. So this again is another pivot. It leaves out of scope if Log Analytics agent is deployed, but it gives you the total visibility into the current MDE deployment status. And the fourth section is not really related to the MMA deprecation that is going on, but it is related to the deprecation of the integration with Qualys VA that we deprecated earlier this year. This is also one of the scenarios where we wanted to remove the external dependency and make it less complex for customers to get visibility into vulnerability assessment findings, which is one of the reasons why we now focus on the MDE-based Microsoft Defender vulnerability management. And so the fourth section gives you insights into the current Qualys VA coverage status. So it says for all the machines that show up here, if the extension is still connected and deployed to these machines. And if that is the case, then you can go ahead and can just simply remove it from there, because we now rely on Microsoft Defender Vulnerability Management as the hero vulnerability assessment solution over all Defender for Cloud. And then there is an upcoming MMA migration in product experience. This is, as we call it today, an MMA migration tool that helps you with 3 different scenarios, 2 of which are actually the ones that we already had seen when I've been talking about the call to action. There is one scenario that is about ensuring that subscription have all the prerequisites to receive the total Defender for Servers Plan 2 value enabled. That means that it gives you insights into your subscriptions and will tell you if you need to enable agentless scanning or if you need to enable Microsoft Defender for Endpoint integration. By the way, when we are talking about Microsoft Defender for Endpoint integration, those of you who are familiar with Defender for Cloud and have been using it for quite a while might have known that there is the endpoint protection setting in Defender for Cloud, and it might tell you that you need to enable additional capabilities. One is the integration of Microsoft Defender for Endpoint for Linux, and the other one is the integration for Microsoft Defender for Endpoint Unified Solution on Windows Server 2012 R2 and 2016. This tool gives you not only insight into if or if not Defender for Endpoint integration as a total is enabled, but also if you need to do something in that regard. As a reminder, the Linux integration that for Defender for Endpoint had been integrated into Defender for Servers Plan 2 back in summer 2021. And the integration of Microsoft Defender Unified Solution for Windows Server 2012 R2 and 2016 has been released in spring 2022. Those two capabilities come with an opt-in. It's a one-time opt-in on legacy subscriptions, meaning subscriptions that back then when we released the corresponding capability already had Defender for Servers and Defender for Endpoint integration enabled. In other words, if you create a new subscription today, it will by default have MDE integration with both Linux and MDE Unified Solution enabled. But if it is a legacy subscription, you might need to do this click of a button or a REST API call that happens under the hood. This tool gives you that insight and allows you to remediate all the subscriptions at scale. The second scenario is that legacy onboarding through Log Analytics Workspace approach that I also emphasized on earlier. The tool will help you make that transition to enable Defender for Servers on the subscription, to deploy Azure Arc to your on-prem machines and then connect them to a subscription to make sure that all the machines that today are covered by the legacy onboarding approach into Defender for Servers Plan 2 will remain covered and will continue to get all the security value of Defender for Servers Plan 2 in the future, even after November 2024. And then there is a third, or in this blade, the first capability, which is a migration tool that helps you to transition from the legacy file integrity monitoring that is based on a Log Analytics Workspace into the new file integrity monitoring powered by Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, which is a capability that is enabled on top of a subscription. In 2 weeks, we are going to have a dedicated webinar on the new file integrity monitoring powered by MDE experience. And in this webinar, we will also showcase the migration tool and give customers an insight into how it works and how it can help you to transition from the old to the new experience. Also, we have some frequently asked questions that we have prepared for today, and you are encouraged to take a screenshot of this slide if you want to. You can also just wait for the slide deck to be published. But these are the most prevalent questions that we are actually getting at the moment. So what will Plan 2, Defender for Servers Plan 2 customers need to do to be prepared? Well, actually, the most important things are enable Microsoft Defender for Endpoint integration and enable agentless scanning on your subscriptions. Then it depends on the scenario that you are in. If you have an on-prem machine and you want to get Defender for Servers Plan 2 capabilities, then connect this machine via Azure Arc enabled servers. If you're more interested in the basic capabilities of Defender for Servers Plan 1, which comes with the integration of Microsoft Defender for Endpoint and Microsoft Defender Vulnerability Management, then you don't have to necessarily deploy Azure Arc. You can also leverage the Microsoft Defender for Endpoint direct onboarding capability that allows us to detect the server in the backend of Defender for Endpoint and connect it to a Azure subscription with Defender for Servers Plan 1 enabled without any additional effort other than deploying Defender for Endpoint on your own. Regarding cost coverage for additional services related to Azure Arc enabled servers, there is some cost coverage or some license coverage that is provided as part of Defender for Servers Plan 2 only. And this is about the Azure Update Manager periodic assessments capability and the guest configuration capability that is used for OS security baselines. For these two features, you do not have to pay any additional fee for the capabilities on top of Azure Arc. Other capabilities as part of Azure Auto Manage, for example, custom assessments that you create on your own and that which are not part of the OS Security Baselines capability in Defender for Servers Plan 2, are not covered by the Defender for Servers license or pricing that we are providing. So that means that it will cause additional billing on top and outside of Defender for Cloud. In order to keep track of the transition efforts, the dashboard, the workbook that I just showed before, can be found at aka.ms/dfservers dashboard. Maybe we can also put that link into the chat, so for every one of you to click on it and go there. I had prepared, let me just move back here, the little, sorry, one step back here, a little demo. Let me just see where it is. There it is. So this is the deployment dashboard GitHub page, and also there is that information that I just explained earlier, also with screenshots, and it explains how it works. In addition, there is a link to a blog, and this blog, which lives in our tech community, is also giving you more insights into the narrative, the idea of why we did all these changes recently. There is a recap in it, and also a dedicated manual to help you understand how this workbook is actually meant to be used. So I definitely encourage you to go there and find out more when it comes to the Defender for Servers dashboard. Regarding the legacy MDE sensor, there have also been questions, what happens with legacy MDE solutions? So Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, which is based on the Log Analytics agent, will continue to be supported on Windows 7, Windows 8.1, and Windows Server 2008 R2, even now after August 2024. These operating systems are out of scope for Defender for Servers Plan 2 and Defender for Servers Plan 1, but you might recognize that newer operating systems, Windows Server 2012 R2 and 2016, could have leveraged the legacy MDE sensor as well. For these operating systems, we have MDE Unified Solution, and customers are encouraged to move to MDE Unified Solution. That is also why we are offering the MDE Unified Solution integration in Defender for Servers as a standard. So Defender for Servers Plan 1 never had an option to leverage MMA-based MDE integration. And Defender for Servers Plan 2, as I mentioned before, since spring 2022 also comes with it as a default to enable MDE Unified Solution integration. But for customers that are still on these legacy operating systems, again, Windows 7, Windows 8.1 are out of scope of Defender for Servers. We are not integrating with these client operating systems. This is a pure MDE-based statement here, but there will be support for these machines going forward. When it comes to benefiting from the 500 megabyte data allowance, the data allowance that always was part of the Defender for Servers Plan 2 capability, then customers need to leverage the Azure Monitor agent in the future, because AMA is that agent that ingests log into the Log Analytics workspace. That means that for on-prem servers, you need to deploy Azure Arc, because there is a hard dependency between Azure Monitor agent and Azure Arc. Azure Monitor agent cannot be deployed to a server operating system without Azure Arc. And so there is this, while we do not necessarily require Azure Arc as part of Defender for Servers, depending on your scenario, you need to have it for the log ingestion. In case you are ingesting the data into multiple workspaces, it's important to understand that the data allowance is only granted once. So you cannot get the allowance on all the workspaces, you will only get it on one of your workspaces. And as Miri already said, the final deprecation dates for the legacy capabilities, which only are file integrity monitoring and OS security baselines left, will be November 30th in this year. But we still encourage customers to transition earlier than that to benefit from the new capabilities and all the latest changes that we did in Defender for Servers. And with that, we have some additional resources. There is an upcoming changes announcement blog that we started about a year ago, and this was the blog that always was meant to keep customers up to date with all the changes that we are doing and planning to do in the future. The Prepare for Upcoming Transitions blog is the blog that I just shared before, and the Defender for Servers Deployment Status Dashboard is the workbook that I also mentioned. And then the Prepare for Retirement of the Log Analytics Agent is a docs document that lives in our Learn pages. It's the MDC, the Microsoft Defender for Cloud documentation. And with that, I think we have some time for questions and answers.
Great, thanks so much. The team has been awesome with answering all the questions coming in the chat. We do have a few unanswered that might be worth bringing up. This one was asked pretty early on in the webinar, so hopefully the context it makes sense. It is, does the same apply for Azure Virtual Desktop, where we get rid of MMA too?
I'm not entirely sure what does the same means in this context, but so for Azure Virtual Desktop, we offer an integration in case it is Windows 10, Windows 11 multi-session. And the integration there means that we can integrate Microsoft Defender for Endpoint for these machines as well. regarding MMA retirement, all the same statements are true as well. So that means that all the capabilities that rely on Log Analytics Agent or that had been relying on Log Analytics Agent before have either been deprecated by August 31st or will be deprecated in November 30th. So in general, we are encouraging customers to stop using the Log Analytics Agent and to transition to the Defender for Endpoint and agentless capabilities that we are offering. And when it comes to log ingestion, then to also deploy Azure Monitor Agent as the successor for log ingestion into the Log Analytics workspace.
Great, thank you. The next one is there a way to switch off MMA auto provisioning at the tenant level rather than at each subscription level?
No, there's not. The reason is that Defender for Cloud is a subscription only, or most of the capabilities are subscription only. So that means that from a technical perspective, you are talking to the Microsoft.security/auto provisioning settings API provider. And this provider lives in a subscription. But what you could do is, for example, build a PowerShell script that loops through all the subscriptions and then calls the same REST API endpoint for every subscription to switch off that capability.
Great, thank you. The next one is, what about the GUI uninstall extension feature for MMA/OMS agent uninstall?
Can you repeat that question?
Yeah, what about the GUI uninstall extension feature for MMA/OMS agent uninstall?
I'm not sure I get that. That might be something related more to Log Analytics Agent, or maybe Gal, you know?
Yeah, I think it's referring to a in-product experience, like a GUI, to help customers to uninstall MMA at scale. It's currently won't be supported as part of MDC portal, but MMA Log Analytics team provided multiple tools to do it at scale via APIs and additional tools. So currently there is no in-product GUI experience within MDC to disable MMA or to remove MMA.
Great, thank you. The next one is AV function and behavioral monitoring disabled on Linux OS when you enable Server Plan 2?
Yes, so the answer is yes, due to legacy conflicts that were created with the Linux agent. But customers can change this configuration and ensure that the behavioral and the real-time protection will be enabled for Linux within Defender for Servers Plan 2. This can be easily done with our new EDR configurations. Should be healthy. In there, customers can see lists of machines that the behavioral or the real-time protection is disabled, and within this recommendation, they can fix it at scale and make sure that this is enabled.
Great, thank you. The next one is a little long. You are mentioning in the FAQ that the data must be ingested by AMA to benefit from the 500 megabyte allowance. Does this mean if I'm activating data ingestion by the XDR connector in Sentinel, the data collected from MDE in Plan 2 will not benefit from the allowance and you pay the full Sentinel ingestion costs?
Well, in general, yes, but this is not necessarily related to the fact that AMA is not used, but to the fact that this is not an included data set. So when we are referring to the 500 megabyte data allowance, then this is a specific set of data types in the Log Analytics workspace that we are granting the allowance on, which, by the way, includes the new file integrity monitoring capability. But when we are talking about the XDR connector in Sentinel, that means that it will collect other data that is not part of the 500 megabyte data allowance, and therefore you will not benefit from this additional allowance on top of Sentinel or on top of Defender for Servers P2.
Great, thank you. The next one is, how do you deploy Defender for Servers for VM scale sets with all this retirement of log analytics, etc.?
So it depends on the VMSS, to be fair. There are two scenarios here, VMSS Flex and VMSS Uniform Orchestration. For VMSS Uniform Orchestration, you could, for example, deploy Microsoft Defender for Endpoint inside the operating system and then benefit from the MDE direct onboarding or from the Defender for Servers capabilities on top. For VMSS Flex, this from a technical perspective is just a simple virtual machine, and all the capabilities that apply to Azure VMs also apply to VMSS flexible orchestration.
Great, thank you. The next one is, this deprecation comes at the same time as our migration between an enterprise agreement to a Microsoft customer agreement. As we look to migrate our Arc-enabled servers, should we perform the migration first or replace the MDE based on MMA?
I'm just reading that question again. I just see it in the chat, and I'm not sure if the MMA deprecation plays into the transition from an EA to a Microsoft customer agreement here. They are looking to migrate their Arc-enabled servers. Migrate in this particular case probably means that their on-prem servers will be migrated into an Azure VM. In general, MDE based on MMA means that these are legacy operating systems here. So for them, it depends on which operating systems they are. In case they are still Windows Server 2008 R2, they will remain on the MMA-based Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. If it's Windows Server 2012 R2 2016, the recommendation will be to migrate to Defender for Endpoint unified solution to benefit from the latest capabilities on top of that. And once this is done, you can then migrate these machines into the Azure subscription. What happens if you migrate an on-prem server into an Azure VM in this particular case means that we will then detect that there is a new Azure VM. We will deploy the MDE extension to this virtual machine and then detect the already installed Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, and we will just not touch it. So that means that no additional installation will then take place, and that transition will go smoothly.
Great, thank you. The next one is, how can we enable attack surface reduction on-premise servers using Azure Arc enabled for Defender for Servers?
So attack surface reduction is a capability in Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, and it will be enabled in the Defender XDR backend. So it's a configuration that is done outside of Microsoft Defender for Cloud, and there shouldn't be any difference there, regardless of if this is an on-prem machine connected via Azure Arc or an on-prem machine that is just connected or deployed to Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. So it will be the same configuration.
Thank you. The next one is, does the GUI uninstall extension feature for MMA/OMS agent uninstall work as effectively as the removal tool?
I think this is log analytics tool, and I'm not sure that we know how it works, and whether the utility and the GUI do perform the same actions.
Great, thank you. The next one is, if we use Cribble to collect logs instead of AMA agent, will we still get the 500 megabyte benefit?
No, so the benefit is granted on top of specific data types on specific tables. So the data is being ingested into the specific tables that are created when AMA is collecting these logs. So no, the data allowance will be granted only for AMA machines that collected a specific set of data types that ingested into specific tables that again are created using AMA.
Great. The next one is, where can we see the number of active servers on Plan 1 and the number of active servers on Plan 2 by subscription?
That's a great question. So we do provide a coverage workbook in Defender for Cloud that will show you if Defender for Servers is enabled on the subscription and which plan it is. But you could create a custom workbook based on that data and collect the information about the machines per subscription. So this is not something that is part of that workbook at the moment. But actually, it's a great idea to add that capability in addition. So not only to see if or if not a plan is enabled, but also what's the coverage across resource types. So I'll take a note on that one.
Thank you. We have two more here. The next one is, if I have my on-prem servers not onboarded to Azure Arc, but have MDE onboarded, is it still relevant to onboard Defender for Servers as well?
Well, it depends on the scenario. In this particular case, this is about on-prem servers that have Defender for Endpoint deployed. And there are two scenarios here. The first scenario is you have an MDE for Servers standalone license. And the second scenario would be the license coverage and the integration with Microsoft Defender for Cloud. For the first scenario, there's nothing else you need to do, because that actually means you have Defender for Endpoint deployed to your on-prem server. It's connected to Defender XDR backend. And Defender for Cloud is not even aware of that particular machine, and you also don't want it to be aware of that machine. The second scenario is you have an on-prem server, and you want it to be covered by Defender for Servers as well, and also to benefit from the per usage pricing that Defender for Servers provides. In this case, you need Defender for Endpoint direct onboarding. This is a capability that from a technical perspective and from the customer perspective, what they need to do is the same, because you need to deploy Defender for Endpoint on your own. But we will then detect all the server operating systems in the MDE backend and connect them to an Azure subscription to make sure that they are integrated into Defender for Cloud, and also to make sure that billing applies based on the uptime of a machine on that Azure subscription. So you don't need to have an MDE standalone license for these servers. Billing will then take place on the Azure subscription. The second, or actually the third scenario here, is that if you want to have additional capabilities on top of Azure Arc, that then means you will deploy Azure Arc on top of your server, connect it to a subscription with either Defender for Servers Plan 1 or Plan 2 enabled, and then we will deploy the MDE extension on top, detect the Defender for Endpoint installation that is already done, and just connect it into Defender for Cloud. So there are these different flavors, and it really depends on the scenario and the outcome that you're looking for.
Great. And then the last question is, regarding MMA retirement, we have a syslog connector that was using MMA, but from investigation, I see the connector is both AMA and MMA installed. My question is, since I don't see any log ingestion failure, do I still need to do anything or just let it be?
Well, it depends on the configuration. If that connector is ingesting via AMA, then everything should be good. If it is connecting to the workspace via the MMA, the log analytics agent, and it's ingesting the data via this one, then it's out of support. And as of February 2025, it will also stop to be capable of ingesting the logs into the workspace. So as of then, that agent will just stop working and stop connecting to the workspace. So the best approach would be to make sure AMA is used as the data the agent that is collecting the data and ingesting into the workspace, and then to already remove log analytics agent, because then you're on the safe side.
Great. That seems to be all the questions. So with that, I would like to thank you, Miri and Tom, for being our guests today and for sharing the great information with our community. Also, thank you to the Q&A team who helped us with answering the questions and providing the resourceful information. To all the listeners still on the line, if you're someone who wishes to aid in the protection of the world from cyber threats and desire to have a say in shaping our strategies, blueprints, and recommendations, then we invite you to become part of our security community. Together, we can make a global impact. So join us at aka.ms/securitycommunity. This is also where you'll be notified about the upcoming webinars, events, and other announcements. Also, please take a minute submitting your webinar feedback at aka.ms/security-webinar-feedback. For those of you who may have additional questions on the topic we just covered or other product-related questions, please feel free to raise them on our Microsoft Tech Community discussion space at aka.ms/mdccommunity. Thank you all for being part of our community and for joining us on these webinars. We hope to see you next time. Goodbye.